After 10 years of being overlooked, my son's boss revealed a touching truth about my hidden past. Maria sat at her desk, the ghost of her long-dreamed aspirations hanging in the air, as she answered calls for the umpteenth time, a familiar tune of heartache and pride strumming in her chest. Each ring brought reminders of her own identity of being the single mother of Tommy, whose upcoming internship sent electric jolts of joy and anguish through her veins. A part of her lit up at the thought of his bright future, while the other half quaked with a raw unease. What if he looked at her differently once he entered that prestigious law firm, surrounded by men in crisp suits and power ties, like Mr. Thompson, the very person she had listened to Tommy idolize? Hearing them discuss cases over dinner had filled her with admiration, yet a lump of discomfort nestled in her throat. Would Tommy's accomplishments shine a too bright light on her own modest existence? She felt small sitting in her chipped swivel chair, exotic dreams tucked away while she shuffled paperwork for the firm's main partners. What if he was ashamed of the struggle that had defined her life for the past decade? The weight of unspoken fears pressed down on her shoulders. Being a receptionist invisible in a world of legality and authority felt more suffocating every day. As Maria dusted off memories from old files, she overheard snippets of a conversation. Her parents fought tirelessly for justice. They were heroes. Mr. Thompson's words echoed, rekindling a flame she thought long extinguished. Here was her past, the very history she had been disconnected from. They were not just her parents. They were a legacy built out of hard work and passion, something worth standing tall for. But as those stories folded back into her heart, her hands trembled. Who is she really? The woman lost behind a desk, or the advocate she once aspired to be? Before they could continue, Maria could hardly breathe, a massive cloud of complicated emotions stifling her resolve. Just as she found strength in understanding her past, the moment slipped like grains of sand through her fingers. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maria leaned in as Mr. Thompson shifted in his seat, looking at her with a spark that ignited desperation. Tommy is bright. Yes, he really is, but I wanted you to know I see where that passion comes from. Your family fought for what's right, and I'm honored to pass that knowledge to him. The room spun. Her heart raced, pounding against the walls of her carefully constructed insecurities. What did it mean to have a legacy? Could she step out from the shadows and reclaim her worth? Would Tommy see her different after this? Mr. Thompson's next words hung in the air like a delicate thread, fraying her semblance of control. I've been guiding him more than just as his mentor. It's a tribute to you, Maria. With every syllable, the layers of her comfortable obscurity peeled away, plunging her deeper into a whirlpool of conflicting identities. Would the truth she had fought to bury finally define her, or would it lock her into a role from which she couldn't escape? The chaos swelled inside her. She had a choice. Would she finally embrace the legacy she feared? Or would fear continue to dictate the story she lived? As the clock ticked in that quiet room, she braced herself for a truth that might shatter everything she felt. The echo of Mr. Thompson's words lingered like an unfinished thought in the depths of Maria's mind. A tribute to her? The recognition felt foreign yet achingly familiar, a glimpse of a life she had nearly forgotten. She sat still, the weight of decision pressing down heavily on her. There was a fierce urgency to uncover the woman she once was, the advocate whose spirit still flickered beneath the surface. The phone rang again, reminder of her current role, a receptionist, the very antithesis of empowerment. It jolted her from the introspective reverie, sending her heart into a wild rhythm. She answered mechanically, yet each word fell flat as she struggled to refocus. It was as if reality pushed against her delirium, forcing her to confront the parallel lives she had unwittingly straddled for a decade. Between calls, she stared at the framed photos on her desk. Tommy's proud smile, the family graduation. And then the faded portrait of her parents at a rally, moments of unapologetic zeal for justice that had defined their existence. How had she allowed life to wrap her in the soft chains of expectation, suffocating her passions? The realization pooled in her stomach, both aching and inspiring. Maybe it was time to unearth her voice, resurrect the essence of who she used to be. Each pulse of fear she felt was laced with a hint of exhilaration at the thought of reclaiming her identity. The fragmented pieces of her life started to converge, her resolve boiling beneath the surface. Could she possibly pursue her ambitions while also nurturing Tommy's burgeoning future? The idea set her heart racing. That night, as she lay awake, tossing and turning under the weight of introspection, a plan began to take shape. Maria yearned to educate herself more about the law, to participate in discussions, to foster awareness of her parents' legacy in a way that would honor them and empower the next generation. Tommy had seen a mentor in Mr. Thompson, but perhaps she needed to craft that role for herself. Taking her first step toward change, she began researching local community college courses on legal studies. The phone rang again, a voicemail prompting her to take action, to reclaim her voice. The thought felt like a lifeline. She could breathe life into her ambitions while solidifying the gateway to ensure her son's success. The next morning, clasping the legal papers she had reviewed as though they hung in the balance of her newfound determination, she approached Mr. Thompson. She could feel her heart hammering in her chest, a flurry of emotions seizing her thoughts. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice wavering but steady, "I'm ready to step beyond the background. I want to learn. I want to gain skills to contribute more effectively not only for myself, but alongside Tommy and for my family's legacy. I want to be the advocate I've always aspired to be." His gaze softened, surprise flickering in his eyes. "I'd be more than happy to guide you." "I had a feeling you'd come to this decision," he responded, the weight of their entwined past hanging between them. As they discussed opportunities, a fire ignited within her, a promise of rebirth. This newfound ambition coursed through her veins, starkly contrasting the burdens she'd carried for so long. She was not just Tommy's mother or a mere receptionist. She was a woman ready to assert her agency, but a nagging fear gnawed at her. What if she stumbled? What if the academic rigors of her past came rushing back to drown her ambitions? What if the world of law, once so alluring, turned out to be an insurmountable wall rather than an open door? Maria took a deep breath, steeling her resolve. The time had come to face the introspection. With fear and excitement intertwined, she knew she was only at the beginning of a journey, a road not guaranteed to be smooth, but essential for her growth. With these thoughts swirling like a tempest in her mind, she penned a note to herself: "Take the leap. Rise to the challenge." As she tucked it safely into her notebook, she couldn't shake the feeling that every decision going forward would define not only her future, but the very legacy she yearned to honor. What awaited her on this path, she couldn't yet fathom, but one undeniable truth pulsed within her: every moment from this point forward would demand courage. Would she answer that call, ready to confront the storm for herself and for Tommy? The sun poured through the office windows, casting golden rays over the cluttered reception desk where Maria sat with a newfound determination. She had spent the past few days buried in legal texts, the language swirling around her like an unknown dialect. The complexity of legalese both overwhelmed and invigorated her. Each paragraph ignited a flame in her mind, pushing her to explore aspects of herself that had long been dormant. As she skimmed through case studies about wrongful convictions that leveled entire lives, she felt a wellspring of emotion rising within her. Alongside the statistics, stories of resilience and recovery stirred something deep inside her, a calm assurance that not only was she capable of learning this world, but she was motivated by a personal connection. She thought of her parents, their unwavering fight for justice, and how they had once inspired a generation. Determined to consolidate her newfound insights, Maria made plans to meet with Mr. Thompson again, this time armed with questions and ambitions not just about her educational aspirations, but about practical applications. Engaging actively in conversations with him felt refreshing. It was more than mentorship, it was participatory growth. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice steady as she took a seat across from him, "I want to talk about internships or volunteer opportunities. I think it's time for me to step outside of this office and find a place that feels more in line with my aspirations." He nodded, eyes sparkling with intrigue. "That's exciting, Maria. There are many pathways to explore. Let us start with our local legal aid clinics. They always need extra hands, and you'll gain first-hand experience in advocating for clients." A mixture of apprehension and excitement coursed through her veins. Would she be able to navigate this world? Was she prepared to confront aspects of her life that lay beyond the comforts of her receptionist desk? As she left the meeting, Maria felt electrified, as though she'd untethered something powerful within herself. But as she walked to her car, another thought crept in. What would she tell Tommy? Her son had grown up hearing only snippets of her story, unaware of the fierce passion that ran through his family's veins. How could she explain her decision to him? During dinner, she watched him as he concentrated on his homework. He was growing into a thoughtful young man, navigating his own desires and aspirations. With every step he took toward becoming a football captain next year, she recognized the echo of her struggle, a roadmap for his own journey of self-discovery. "Hey, Tommy," she ventured, setting the table. "What do you see yourself doing in a few years? After high school?" He looked up, brow furrowing. "I want to play football at a college level. Maybe even make it to the NFL," he replied with the optimism of youth. "That's great," she affirmed, encouraged by his clarity of purpose. "But I've been contemplating things too. I know I always talk about your dreams, but I might be starting to chase some of my own." Curiosity laced through his features. "What do you mean?" Maria took a breath, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. "I'm trying to get involved in the law, to honor your grandparents and become more than just who I currently am. I want you to know that it's never too late to find what you're passionate about. We can inspire each other." His eyes widened. "You want to be a lawyer?" "Something like that," she responded, the pride in his gaze invigorating her spirit. "But more than that, I want to advocate for people who need help." Tommy smiled, an expression of deep admiration blossoming. "That's really cool, Mom. I knew you had it in you." Yet, despite the budding encouragement from her son, doubt lingered. What if he viewed her newfound pursuit as an unwelcome change? She grappled with an intense hesitation, the nagging fear that her path could cast a shadow on his ambitions, leaving her as an example of disappointment rather than inspiration, with the evening's discussions echoing in her mind. Maria sat up late into the night. As she drafted an email to the legal aid clinic, her heart raced. She thought fiercely about the legacy she wanted to contribute to her family. The duty felt so deeply intertwined with her child's aspirations. She clicked send, a simple act that resonated with gravity, a commitment that signaled the beginning of her journey. But as the night deepened, an overwhelming thought struck her. Was she truly prepared to pursue this path, knowing the shadows of her past might resurface? She felt an insistent pulse in her chest, a blend of exhilaration and dread. How would she reconcile the diverging paths of her family and her own journey? The answers felt just beyond her grasp, teasing her resolve as the night lingered on. As dawn crept closer, Maria determinedly planned her next steps, realizing that the road ahead would force her to confront not only the challenges of the law, but the very heart of her identity. Would she rise to meet not just the future, but the faceless ghosts of her past? The following week, Maria arrived at the legal aid clinic with the kind of anticipation usually reserved for a first day at school. Clutching her notes, she stepped inside, the door creaking open to reveal a small but bustling office filled with people, some studying documents, others engaged in animated discussions. The atmosphere pulsed with urgency, highlighting the weight of the work being done. A warm-faced woman approached her. "Hi there. You must be Maria. I'm Clara, the coordinator here. We're thrilled to have you." Clara's smile felt sincere, easing Maria's nerves slightly. "Thank you. I'm looking forward to helping out," Maria replied, her voice buoyed by an eagerness to make a contribution. Yet, beneath the surface enthusiasm lurked a quiet storm of self-doubt. Was she really capable of handling the demands of this environment? Clara led her to a small desk piled high with case files. "Here's us where you'll be working. We primarily assist folks navigating legal issues, but you'll get a glimpse of all sorts of cases. Your role will involve research, client interviews, and perhaps even drafting some documents." Maria felt the weight of expectations settle upon her shoulders. Client interviews? The thought scared her. What if she faltered? The intensity of the responsibility was overwhelming, yet exhilarating at the same time. "I'm ready to learn." She said it more to herself than to Clara, affirming her intentions. The first few days were a whirlwind. Maria spent hours poring over case files, absorbing the intricacies of law and how each document served as a lifeline for clients fighting battles both seen and unseen. Each case resonated deeply, connecting her to the broken dreams and tenacious hopes of those seeking justice. The more she read, the more she felt compelled to understand how she could wield this knowledge. Then, one afternoon, Maria was invited to sit in on a client meeting. Her heart raced as she prepared to witness firsthand the realities of the legal profession. As the client, a young man named Javier, shared his harrowing tale of wrongful accusation, Maria's world shifted. Listening to Javier's story stirred feelings she had long buried. The pain in his voice echoed the turmoil of her past, the fear, the helplessness, and the relentless desire for justice. She felt a connection that sparked something within her, awakening the part of her spirit that yearned for purpose. After the meeting, Clara turned to Maria, her expression discerning. "How do you feel about what you just heard?" Maria took a moment, her thoughts swirling. "It's heartbreaking, but it's also motivating. I want to be someone who helps ensure that people like Javier don't fall through the cracks." "Good," Clara said, nodding. "Your empathy can guide you to powerful advocacy. But remember, it takes resilience to be in this field. You'll occasionally face challenge and frustration." Maria nodded, absorbing Clara's words. She realized resilience had been a guiding principle in her family, another thread connecting her to her parents' legacy. But now, the question lingered: could she develop that resilience further, and could she withstand the pain that often accompanied those journeys? As the days turned into weeks, Maria found herself growing bolder. She began drafting documents for cases, asking questions that revealed hidden depths in her understanding. What once felt like a daunting task transformed into a systematic exploration of her own capabilities. Yet, as the familiarity of her surroundings began to settle, she couldn't shake the shadow of her past. A familiar face appeared one evening as she returned from work, a face she'd hoped never to see again. It was a quick encounter, but the recognition struck her like a bolt of lightning. What did they know about her aspirations? What secrets did they hold? This unexpected reunion pushed her to confront fears she had planned to keep neatly tucked away, reigniting the tension between her past and her burgeoning future. As she caught her breath, Maria knew she wasn't just facing the challenges of the legal field anymore. She was in a war against her own unresolved history. Would she rise to protect her newfound passion, or would the remnants of her past refuse to stay buried? With this new adversary looming over her, the stakes of her journey intensified. Would she confront her past as she stepped forward into this new life, or would it hold her back from her destiny? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the office, Maria sat at her desk, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Dread coiled in her stomach like an unforgiving serpent. The fading light reflected her internal struggle, a stark reminder that the past had a way of revisiting the present when least expected. Each case she worked on had increasingly become a sanctuary, a distraction from the persistent gnawing of her unresolved history. When she spotted the familiar face, a rush of emotions threatened to overwhelm her. A cocktail of anger, shame, and bitterness resurfaced. Alejandro, a figure from her past, had walked through the clinic's door. He'd been a classmate and an unintentional symbol of everything she both aspired to overcome and quietly envied. Their paths had diverged dramatically since high school. While she was spiraling through the depths of fear and uncertainty, he had seemingly sailed into success, effortlessly. Maria's heart pounded as she devised a plan. Encountering Alejandro would be inevitable, but she had to regain control. Clenching her fists under her desk, she whispered to herself, "Focus. You are here to learn, to help, to make a difference." Each word was a reminder of her purpose, a shield against the emotional conflict swirling within. The following week unfolded more predictably, yet the specter of her past lingered. Maria spent hours mastering law terminology, enhancing her research skills, and speaking confidently with clients. Clara encouraged her growth, often reminding her that her past did not dictate her future. But each instruction felt as if it were layered with the weight of expectation. She was determined to prove her resilience, albeit while wrestling with the shadows that hinted at her vulnerabilities. In a moment of unexpected clarity, Maria saw her past not as an obstacle, but as fuel. The stories of clients overwhelmed with challenges ignited a craving within her to rise above the fog of her insecurities. During one particularly difficult case involving a domestic abuse survivor, Maria had the chance to conduct an interview. As she listened to the client's harrowing experience, something clicked inside her. Each piece of shared anguish resonated, kindling a resolve forged from her own suffering. With Clara's guidance, Maria began drafting an advocacy letter to the court, intertwining the urgency of her client's situation with powerful emotional appeals. Each word became a testament to her drive not just to be heard, but to advocate for those whose voices had been muted. There was no hesitation, no lingering doubt. For once, she felt unyielding. Yet, late one evening, as she gathered her things to leave, Maria found herself face to face with Alejandro. The encounter was electric. Her heart raced, and her mind flooded with memories of their shared past. He stood there, unassuming yet profoundly present. "Maria," he greeted with an inflection that felt strangely foreign, yet familiar. "I saw you working on that case with Clara. It's impressive." His words bore a sincerity she initially struggled to believe. Had he changed, or was she merely projecting her doubts onto him? "Thank you, Alejandro. It's a lot of work, but I'm passionate about it," she replied, contemplating the implications of their conversation. His expression shifted, a recognition of their shared history flickered in his eyes. "Remember when we dreamed about making a difference? Looks like you're well on your way." Those few lines seared into her consciousness, awakening the dormant aspirations she had harbored. The weight of expectation from her past became evident. Could she reclaim the ambitions that had once defined her? Or would his presence, symbolic of her perceived failures, become another anchor dragging her down? As their small talk unraveled and simmered into silence, Maria grappled with an awakening awareness. This moment, this reconnection, could either reaffirm her resolve or bring turmoil back to the forefront of her journey. The decision loomed like an imminent storm: resist the comfort of familiarity and forge ahead towards her envisioned future, or crumble under the weight of what had once been. Steeling herself, Maria caught her breath. The moment had come for decisions of great consequence, both personal and professional. She couldn't retreat into the shadows of her past any longer, nor could she allow any of her former choices to dictate her present. "Maybe it's time to face this," she thought, determination flooding her senses. But with the seeds of confrontation planted, Maria found herself at a crossroads. Would she wield her newfound strength and reclaim her narrative, or would the shadows prove too heavy to escape? With the weight of her past and future colliding, Maria stepped back into her routine. The next morning, the crisp air was laced with a different tension. Each person she passed in the hallway transformed from mere coworkers to unwitting witnesses to her internal struggle. Maria felt their gazes prick at her, lifting her resolve with every footstep. Even as thoughts of Alejandro threatened to drag her down, work had become a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided an outlet for her ambitions. The agency's steady stream of cases sharpened her focus and honed her skills. But on the other hand, the deeper she delved into her work, the more she found herself wrestling with insecurities that seemed to fester, each legal brief or meeting invitation haunted by specters of inadequacy. Constant comparisons to Alejandro arose unbidden. Even in his absence, he loomed large. As her mind spiraled, Clara noticed. During a dull afternoon meeting, Maria caught her mentor's eye, a flicker of concern dancing beneath Clara's steady gaze. "Maria," Clara said gently, breaking the monotony of the discussion. "You seem distracted. Are you all right?" For a fleeting moment, Maria considered deflecting, masking her turmoil with practiced professionalism. Instead, she hesitated, caught in the tug-of-war between facade and honesty. "It's just I ran into someone from my past. It's complicated." The room's chatter faded to a distant hum as Clara leaned forward. "Do you believe it's holding you back?" Maria offered a tight smile, struggling to articulate the chaos within. "I want to be better. I want to make a difference. But it feels like every time I make progress, it's overshadowed by memories." The hardness in her voice surprised even her. Clara nodded knowingly. "We all have ghosts, Maria. You can choose to let them define you, or you can use them as fuel. What does being better mean to you?" Her mentor's question hung in the air, craving a response. But Maria grappled with the uncertainty of her answer. Was it merely about excelling at her work, or was there a deeper yearning to validate her worth? The rest of the week unfolded under the weight of that question. Each case brought unique challenges and insights, yet Maria sensed the shadows of self-doubt creeping closer. It became evident that while she was learning the mechanics of law, her emotional foundation was still precarious. Then came an unexpected opportunity. Clara proposed Maria lead a workshop on advocacy techniques for fellow interns and junior staff. The idea struck Maria with both excitement and terror. Leading meant vulnerability. It would force her into the spotlight, a position she had skirted for far too long. Could she truly inspire others while unable to completely silence her own insecurities? Over the days leading up to the workshop, Maria immersed herself in preparation, stepping beyond her comfort zone to refine her presentation skills. But doubt persisted. She found herself questioning everything: the integrity of her work, the authenticity of the progress she had made. As the day arrived, Maria entered the auditorium, her heart thumping wildly. The room was filled with eager faces, all anticipating her insights. She took a deep breath, drawing strength from the voices of her past, the ones that had once whispered discouragement, now transformed into a chorus urging her to rise. Once she began speaking, an unexpected shift happened. With each slide she presented, stories from her clients flowed from her lips like a wellspring. Not only were they advocacy techniques, but they also became moments of personal revelation. These narratives, woven from hardship and resilience, connected her to the audience in a way she hadn't foreseen. Halfway through the workshop, with the room hanging on her every word, her gaze flickered toward the back where Alejandro sat, a specter of her past now shaped into an ally. The walls she had built around her were cracking, and in that moment, Maria understood something crucial. Real transformation often requires facing both the light and dark within. When self-as applause erupted, Maria felt exhilaration swirling, overpowering her earlier fears. She had started to reclaim her narrative, forging ahead in her journey of self-discovery and purpose. Just as she began to breathe freely, a nagging question punctured her newfound confidence. What would it take to fully embrace who she was, in every facet? With the glow of victory illuminating her path, a wisp of uncertainty lingered. Would her evolving identity withstand the scrutiny of the world beyond this moment, or would she be forced to confront elements of vulnerability she had yet to explore? As Maria stepped off the stage, poised on the brink of deeper introspection, the urge to confront her past once more loomed large. Could she truly continue to rise without fully reconciling the shadows that followed her? Maria's heart raced as she stepped off the stage, hosting a conflicting blend of triumph and trepidation. The applause echoed in her ears, but underneath it lay a rising tide of self-doubt. She felt exhilarated, but burdened by a new magnitude of expectation both from others and herself. The workshop had illuminated her strengths, yet an unsettling undercurrent of vulnerability beckoned her to delve deeper into her unresolved past. Determined to harness the momentum from the workshop, Maria aimed to channel her emotions into her work. She threw herself into an ongoing case involving a small business struggling under financial strain, a venture she felt passionate about. As she researched, She sought to connect with the owner, empathetically grasping the weight of her challenge. Yet, every moment that took her deeper into the turmoil of others reminded her of her own lingering shadows. Their battles resonated, eliciting feelings she had thought she could compartmentalize. Clara remained her steadfast guide in this chaotic period. Knowing Maria's continued exploration of her own vulnerabilities was vital, she called her into her office, the walls adorned with accolades now seemingly imprinted with a quiet understanding. "I noticed you took on more cases," Clara began, her tone probing yet gentle. "Hiding behind work can be a refuge, but is it helping you confront your past?" The inquiry pierced through Maria's defenses, and she hesitated before responding. Her instinct was to nod and wave away the suggestion, but a stubborn truth bubbled to the surface. "I think I am," she confessed, her tone wavering. "But every case seems to open old wounds I didn't realize were still raw. I want to help them while figuring myself out. Am I doing this right?" Clara's eyes softened. "Right and wrong isn't always clear. Choose to let your past fuel your compassion. It's okay to bleed a bit as you heal. Have you thought about integrating those stories into your work more?" A flicker of unease ignited in Maria as she considered sharing her personal narrative more openly. The thought of baring her soul was daunting. However, she knew that tying her experiences to her advocacy could create a genuine connection with her clients. What if being seen as vulnerable could lead to deeper trust? The idea transformed into a strategy. In her next meeting with the business owner, Maria resolved to approach her case from a more personal angle. Instead of just offering a plan, she would share a glimpse into her own struggle with self-worth, how she had felt overlooked and unaccepted, much like the owner's current situation. Could this bridge their emotional chasm? As that meeting loomed, Maria's emotions swirled with anticipation and dread. She meticulously prepared her presentation, but in the back of her mind, she felt the specter of Alejandro looming ever closer, prodding her fears of being insufficient. What if she opened up and was met with disbelief or pity? Was she strong enough to lay her vulnerabilities bare in front of someone else's pain? The day arrived, and as she entered the small, dimly lit conference room, the owner's hesitant gaze met hers, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them. Maria felt that the stakes had never been higher. This was not only a legal strategy, but a critical moment of personal relinquishment. The conversation began, and when she sensed the owner struggling to articulate her own despair, Maria took a deep breath and shared her story. She spoke of her battles, her fears, and her transformative moments, each confession resonating with the owner. Slowly but surely, as they navigated their vulnerabilities, a bond began to weave between them, a fragile but powerful thread that only the bravest connections could forge. Maria's heart swelled with a mix of hope and anxiety. The owner's eyes softened, and she began to share her own struggles, a dialogue blossoming where words once lay unspoken. As they exchanged their truths, Maria realized she was not only advocating for another, she was embarking on a path toward her own acceptance. Caught in a moment of clarity, Maria understood that the true measure of her progress wasn't simply achieving personal milestones, but in being brave enough to confront her past and weave it into something constructive. This journey would not be linear, but she dared to hope that each step could one day turn the shadows into strength. But as she finished the meeting, a call from Clara interrupted her contemplation. "Maria, can we talk about the next steps for your next case? Something has come up that may shift your perspective on your approach." The air thickened with uncertainty. What had she yet to uncover about herself and the world she was navigating? Would she find the answers she sought, or would it open a new chapter of challenges? Maria emerged from the conference room, the weight of the previous conversation settling on her like a warm blanket, yet simultaneously raising new, perplexing questions. Her heart still echoed with the emotion shared, a mix of vulnerability and empowerment. Clara's call echoed in her mind, a reminder that there was still more ahead, challenges that could either amplify her growth or send her careening back into uncertainty. With each step towards Clara's office, she analyzed her recent breakthrough. Had she truly uncovered a part of herself, or had she merely scratched the surface? The potential sanctity of connecting with another person had opened a door, but it was a double-edged sword. Would bearing her past continue to be a source of strength, or would it expose her to deeper vulnerabilities? Inside the office, Clara was seated at her desk, reviewing some papers. The familiar scent of coffee wafted through the room, grounding yet energizing, inviting clarity. Maria took a seat, a mix of eagerness and apprehension churning in her stomach. Clara's steady gaze met hers, and without prompting, she began, "I want to discuss the upcoming case about the non-profit organization facing allegations of misconduct." Maria's interest peaked. She was familiar with the organization, had admired its mission. As Clara spoke, she paused frequently, measuring Maria's reactions, keenly aware of how intertwined their professional paths had become. The director of the nonprofit, Elise, has an impressive background, but she's shutting down under pressure. I think you can help her rethink this crisis. Elise's struggle resonated with Maria's fresh reflections on her own journey. The idea of assisting someone grappling with their reputation, while she herself was trying to build her own, felt significant. Clara continued, "It's important to approach this not just from a legal standpoint, but also from a storytelling perspective. Help her share her narrative in a way that restores trust, not just for herself, but for the community she serves." Maria's mind whirred as they discussed the particulars. How could she translate her own experience into a strategy for Elise? Would it involve sharing her own past publicly once again? Perhaps there was power in collective storytelling, amplifying both their voices. But the discomfort treaded dangerously close to fear. What if Elise chose to rise by pushing others down, like the shadows Maria had fought against? As Clara jotted down notes, Maria's thoughts circled the implications of this new case. The prospect of working alongside someone in a similar position both excited and overwhelmed her. Would Ella be open to a collaborative narrative? To transparency that could shine a light on their mutual discomfort and struggles? Maria, Clara's voice broke into her reverie. This case might push you to confront more about your past, but it's also an opportunity for growth. You have the chance not just to guide Elise, but to solidify your understanding of your own story. Think about what this means for you. Her words drilled into Maria's consciousness as she nodded slowly. Taking on Elise's case wasn't merely about doing her job. It was about daring to reshape perceptions, creating a bridge from her experiences to someone in need. Could she design a path forward that would allow her to keep transforming her pain into compassion? "Let us schedule a meeting with Elise," Clara suggested resolutely. "You'll need to prepare. This could be profound for both of you." As Maria left the office, determination began to course through her veins, mingled with apprehension. She felt empowered, yet the threads of her past loomed large, gnawing at her confidence. Was she forged enough to face potential opposition? This case would not just be about the law, it would demand her emotional resilience and courage in ways she had not yet fathomed. As she sat at her desk later, preparing for the looming meeting, a notification pinged on her phone, a message from an old colleague, someone who had a tumultuous history with her that dated back years. The words on the screen sent a shiver down her spine. "We need to talk. There are things you don't remember. Things that could change everything." Was this the confrontation she had been waiting for, or the ghosts of her past rearing their ugly heads again? Maria breathed deeply as she stared at the message on her phone. The throbbing pulse in her neck reminded her of the weight of history that she had not entirely released. The reluctance to unearth buried memories intertwined with her burgeoning confidence, creating a chaotic mix of anticipation and dread. She had fought hard to control her narrative, yet here it was, threatening to unravel before she even had a chance to gain her footing in her new role. The meeting with Elise loomed closer, filled with both promise and peril. Maria knew she had to confront her past, whatever that meant, and the message from her old colleague felt like an eerie echo of unresolved issues she thought were behind her. Would she have to revisit these shadows just when she was finally stepping into the light? She turned her attention to her laptop, determined to prepare for Elise's case. Clara's words were etched in her mind. This would also mean confronting her own story. As Maria compiled information about Elise and her nonprofit organization, she found herself reflecting on her own journey. Each bullet point on her notes represented a new challenge. The drive for transparency and vulnerability in Elise's narrative mirrored the very essence of what she was wrestling with internally. Trust, she murmured to herself. It's about trust. The concept rolled around in her head like a pebble in a shoe. Trust was what she needed both from Elise and herself. How could she foster this trust in the narrative they were crafting together? Maria felt the flicker of an idea ignite in her mind. She could approach Elise not merely as a lawyer, but as someone who understood the nuances of personal reinvention. Elise's vulnerabilities could serve as the canvas upon which they painted a new story, one that could articulate the complexities of redemption and resilience. Sitting back in her chair, she began to sketch out a strategy. What if we start with your vision? She penned in her notes. Get to the heart of how you perceive the organization's mission and the trust that your community invested in you. The concept brought her a sense of calm. It was a professional guideline grounded in personal experience. Maria was adept at navigating vulnerable feelings, and perhaps she could help Elise find the strength to reshape her narrative with authenticity. Yet, as she scribbled ideas, her phone pinged again, pulling her sharply from that calming resolve. It was the same old colleague from earlier. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow at noon. You need to hear this. The mere thought of seeing that individual sent a wave of discomfort through her. The emotional ramifications of their previous encounters were still raw. Did she have the courage to confront whatever it was they would discuss? The gut instinct that she should just ignore the message clashed with her budding resolve to face her fears head-on. No more running, she whispered to herself, channeling Clara's earlier encouragement. She had stepped into her strength. Now, she must be willing to confront her past. But what would that entail? Would this reunion reveal vulnerable, painful truths that threatened her newfound purpose? The clock on her desk ticked relentlessly, mirroring her escalating anxiety. She faced a critical conundrum: attend the cafe meeting and possibly derail the progress she'd made, or ignore the past, risking it haunting her as the case with Elise began. The days of avoidance were behind her. She could cultivate compassion from her heartache, yet the fiction of safety through denial beckoned enticingly. Finally, she resolved to attend the meeting. After all, wasn't she endeavoring for growth? With a rising sense of obligation, she felt a resolve welling within. As she prepared to close her laptop, a tentative determination washed over her. Tomorrow would be not only about Elise, her story, it would also incorporate Maria's own reckoning. Was this the moment where she could embrace her resentment and turn it into understanding? The tension hung thick around her as she exited the office, propelled by an uneasy yet invigorating force. In the heart of the city, amid the cacophony of life swirling around, she was ready to face two opportunities: the future she faced with Elise, and the confrontation with her past that loomed closer than she could have imagined. Maria took a deep breath, challenging herself silently with a profound question. Was she ready to confront the problem that could alter everything she had worked for? The cafe hummed with the warm chatter of patrons, oblivious to the storm clouding Maria's mind as she waited for her old colleague. Against the backdrop of fresh brewed coffee scents, she felt a strange mix of apprehension and anticipation. She had forged a path towards advocacy, embracing her past while cultivating her future, a fragile balance that could shatter with a single word from Alejandro.as. She spotted him across the room. A rush of memories flooded through her. He approached, a shadow of their complex history looming, yet Maria stood her ground. "Thank you for meeting me," she said evenly, regaining composure. "Maria," he responded, a hint of nostalgia coloring his tone. "It's been a while." "I've moved on," Maria declared, her heart pounding. "And I'm ready to confront whatever it is you have to say." Alejandro's expression faltered, revealing layers of vulnerability previously hidden behind his assertive exterior. "I'm not here to drag you back. I actually wanted to talk about the past, the truth behind it," he admitted, his voice steadying. "What do you mean?" "Sometimes we think we've left things behind, but they're still entangled in our stories. I hold pieces of our past that could shed light on your present," he revealed, the sincerity in his eyes overwhelming her. The words cut deeper than she anticipated, echoing the internal struggle she faced daily. What does that mean for me? What I'm building now? Sometimes to fully rise, we need to understand where we've come from. The pain of our past doesn't hold us back, it informs and motivates our advocacy, Alejandro offered, sounding almost philosophical. Murmurs in the cafe faded away, and the world around them blurred. Maria realized she was teetering on the edge of a decision that could shape the next chapters of her life. She had sought truth for her clients, yet here was a chance to confront her own. With every pulse of her heart, she began to weave together the threads between her aspirations and memories. "I'm ready to listen," she finally conceded, a serene determination glowing within her. "What do you know?" As they spoke, layers of their shared past unfurled, missteps, unfulfilled promises, dreams stifled by societal expectations. Yet as Maria listened, she discovered something far more profound. The truth Alejandro revealed about her earlier self, the activist who fought for justice, wasn't extinguished. It had merely transformed, waiting for the right moment to rekindle. By the time their conversation wrapped, Maria felt lighter, a reassuring clarity radiated from within, as if the fog threatening her aspirations had begun to lift. "Thank you for sharing," she expressed genuinely. "Not just the facts, but the truth of our shared journey." Leaving the cafe, Maria felt invigorated, charged with a new mission, intertwining her past with her advocacy. The next day, she met with Elise, and the reality of their situation unfolded tremendously. Maria imbued their discussions with authenticity, sharing her story alongside Elise's, revealing both struggles and resilience. As Elise opened up about her own shadows, Maria felt the connection deepen, transforming their meeting from mere legal discourse into an empowering partnership. Elise's journey wasn't just hers to navigate. It became a reflection of Maria's own reconciliation with her past. The two empowered one another, each story igniting hope. They drafted communications together that not only highlighted the organization's mission, but also embraced the vulnerabilities each had faced along the way. This was advocacy not just in the legal sense, but as an authentically woven narrative that resonated with the community. As the press release went live, Maria's heart soared. The once feared connection with Alejandro opened the door for her to weave the triumphs and tribulations of her past into her present narrative of restoration, clarity, and purpose. The tempest within her transformed into a measured resolve, propelling her forward in both her personal and professional lives. Each client interaction became a platform for growth, a fertile ground for her advocacy. Their stories, interwoven with her own experience, revealed profound insights into the heart of justice. The legacy of her parents echoed within her, fueling her dedication, as clarity united ambition and purpose. Stepping onto the path she had always aspired to traverse, Maria solidified her place not as a mere spectator in life, but as a champion for those whose stories mirrored hers. She held her head high, embracing her newfound confidence with each interaction. Maria learned that true strength was not simply in conquering fears, but in recognizing them as part of the journey from the child of advocates to an advocate herself. In the reflection of the glass doors of the clinic, she saw more than just a woman who had clawed her way out of shadows. She witnessed the architect of her legacy, a force propelled by purpose and resolute advocacy. The fears that had suffocated her aspirations transformed, becoming the very foundation on which she built her future, honoring both herself and others through the power of shared stories. As she embraced her next steps with clarity, she knew that this was not the end, but the most exhilarating beginning. You need to subscribe now to this channel to witness the ongoing explorations of powerful stories in personal transformation. Leave a like now to show your support for the journeys of individuals overcoming their pasts. Your engagement truly makes a difference. Comment with your reactions and theories about Maria's evolution, because your perspective matters in this community, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the inspiration and empowerment.